watching Fox 8 News.
The 1978 disappearance of 5-year-old Stephanie Hebert sent shockwaves through Metro New Orleans. Thousands of volunteers and police officers spent days searching for her. Parents Joyce and Donald Hebert made public pleas.
To the person or persons that have our little girl, please take care of her for us.
And neighbors in the family's small Waggaman subdivision watched their children closely.
That morning before I went to work, that she was at my house with my daughter, and my husband was home.
Beverly Simpson's family still lives across the street from the Heberts' former home. Her youngest daughter and Stephanie were playmates.
The night before, she spent the night at my house. I mean, they figured until about a half an hour before she disappeared, she was with my youngest daughter. And I feel, but for the grace of God, it could have been my child that was kidnapped.
Simpson says investigators spent weeks combing her house for clues, to the point that she felt harassed.
Every day I come home, police units were in front of my house, crime scene units, all the neighbors out in the street looking. I mean, it was terribly embarrassing to pull in front of your house like this.
The disappearance of Stephanie Hebert had another profound effect on Beverly Simpson and her family. Her son, who was 16 at the time, became the prime suspect. Beverly believes because he ran away from home a couple of days after Stephanie disappeared. But Roger Alexander says Stephanie's disappearance had nothing to do with his decision to go live in Maine with his father.
2 days later, my stepdad and I got in a fight. All right. I was 16 and didn't want to listen to stepdad, so I left her a note and I went back to Maine. I ran away because him and I argued, and I left. That's all that happened. That was it. And that was enough to make them think it was me that did this.
Shortly after the hunter happened to cross Stephanie's remains in November of 1978, Alexander says detectives from St. Charles and Jefferson parishes paid him a visit at his new home in Maine.
I don't know how you're trying to pin this on me because I got witnesses. I passed a lie detector test.
And they had one detective in Jefferson Parish. I mean, he told me that he passed the lie detector test, especially one question: did you do this to Stephanie? And his answer was no, and I was told he did not lie when he gave him that answer. I mean, how much plainer can you be? I got a detective telling me this.
Meanwhile, back in Waggaman, detectives were back in Beverly Simpson's house.
I asked them what were they looking for that they didn't find 6 months earlier when they did a search. I was told, well, then we were looking for Stephanie, now we're looking for evidence. And I mean, and just like that. And they just, they said, they did this for almost 2 weeks. Till finally reached the point, I told them, you know, you searched my house and you better find what you're looking for because you will not get in again without a warrant.
Roger Alexander says he spent the day Stephanie Hebert disappeared about 6 blocks away from the scene at his aunt's house. He says he was helping a cousin overhaul an old car and only left there for about 20 minutes to walk to a nearby convenience store. Detectives didn't buy that story, and in the summer of 1979, 7 months after Stephanie's remains were found in Taft, the St. Charles Parish District Attorney's Office convened a grand jury.
I got my subpoena. My date to appear before the grand jury was my father's birthday. It was July 27th of '79, and it lasted a week. So on July 31st, this was the date that they come back with no true bill. There was no indictment. He was not charged with anything.
27 years later, in 2006, Joyce Hebert asked that her daughter's case be reopened.
I received some information and was told, go back and see what you can do. And I started a 3-year process that just ended. It started with finding the evidence box. They finally found the evidence box behind the clerk of court's office in Gretna. They started processing the evidence box in March of 2007. In February of '08, they did an exhumation, and they were trying to get Stephanie's DNA.
Hebert says the forensic test she requested turned up a minuscule DNA sample from the rope that was used to tie Stephanie to the tree. In January of 2009, detectives paid Roger Alexander another visit, this time at his home in Pennsylvania.
He says, you know what this is about? I says, no. He says, Jefferson Parish. I went, no, I still don't. He says, Stephanie Hebert, and that's when I went, you can't be serious.
Alexander agreed to give a DNA sample, one that he, his mother, and Joyce Hebert all say did not match what was found on the rope. While Hebert's hopes of solving the case were dashed, Alexander expected to finally be free of suspicion.
I truly don't understand how they got me involved, all right? I understand the girl was at the house, okay? I understand that she was at the house the morning she disappeared, all right? But for the life of me, I cannot understand if I can account for the whole day, except for 20 minutes, how I was supposed to pick up this little girl, go up the river road, 21 miles, and do what I had to do, and back in 20 minutes. They never explained to me how they come to the conclusion it was me. They just told me it was me, and that was it. I done it, and with the witnesses, with the lie detector, now the DNA.
The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, St. Charles Parish Sheriff's Office, St. Charles District Attorney's Office, and the Jefferson Parish DA's office all declined to be interviewed for this story. State Senator Danny Martini is the JPSO's lawyer.
If JPSO wanted to, I guess they could come out and say, you know, we've evaluated this last bit of evidence, and we no longer consider Roger Alexander to be a suspect. But that does not mean that 5 years from now, if they came up with evidence or some witnesses or something, that he couldn't be charged. So he's never going to get a clean bill of health.
In 1988, there would be a strange twist to this story, a death in Roger Alexander's family.
They tried to make me believe that it was a drug overdose.
And then she put herself in the trunk?
Mm-hmm.
And what about the beating?
I don't know. They had no answers for this.
Coming up, another mother mourning a lost daughter, convinced there's more to the case than what detectives uncovered.